Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating guest. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi everyone, my name is Sarah Chong. I'm actually based in Melbourne, which is bright sunshine today. I guess really for me, I'd say my real sort of journey and my story really began in 2010. Like many young graduates, I was faced in a job market that kept telling me I didn't tick all their boxes. I did not have enough country experience in terms of going overseas. I had studied international relations and I had dreamt of a UN career. So I had the language issues where they said, no, sorry, you don't speak enough languages to be part of our job pool. You don't have enough experience to be considered like culturally and linguistically diverse, in which I was very confused. And being very young at the time, I didn't understand because I was like, but I am ethnic, and this just doesn't make sense to me. But okay, all right. And at that time, I was working as a community services trainer, and I sat there in the office, frustrated after yet another job rejection. And I sort of sat there and thought to myself, this is not the life that I want for myself. Like, I didn't spend all this time studying at uni, going and self-funding an internship there just to be sitting in a job that I didn't really enjoy, that I didn't feel like I was making a difference. As I was sitting in the office contemplating my future, it was just so convenient that a world globe happened to be sitting on my desk there. And so I thought to myself, you know what? These people keep telling me, oh, you need more experience. Oh, you need to go to a developing country. You need to really live that life there. So I was like, okay, you know what? Yep, all right, I'll take your feedback on. So I literally spun the globe and then was like, okay, wherever this globe lands, I'm going there. So when I spun the globe, it actually happened to land on Kenya. And now I had studied about various African countries, throughout my university there, but I'd never actually been to one there. I had never even been remotely close to one or anything like that there. So I was like, okay, Kenya, right, all right, well, we can do this. It's like, well, princess, you always wanted the adventure of a lifetime. So, maybe this is where it begins. So I started looking at, okay, well, what does Kenya, have to do with my career and so forth? What can I actually do to improve my chances of getting a better job here? So I started looking at, okay, what's going on? And then when I started talking about Kenya and looking further into the country, I found that there was a place called Kibera. Now, I had never heard about this, never seen the place before, obviously. They're not even read about it there. And I was like, interesting. So this is the largest slum in Africa there. Okay, well, again, the adventure of a lifetime awaits. So when I looked at what I could do there and so forth there, I was quite bold. Being in my late 20s, I started messaging people. There really wasn't a LinkedIn back then. So I resorted to Facebook. And I started looking up different groups that were working in Kibera. And I connected with this person who said, actually, I am from Kibera, and I'd be more than happy to connect you. So I was like, okay. So I took a really big leap of faith, packed up everything, quit my job, much to the horror of a lot of people around me. And mind you, back then in 2010, there was still not a lot of publicity around, Kenya or Africa in general as being, the place that, people would generally go to for, a gap year or just for self-development experience there. So I received lots of negativity. One person actually told me that I'd probably come back in a body bag, and I was like, great, thanks. But against all odds there, as I said, I packed up everything there. I met the person. I ended up connecting with a few groups over there in Kibera, and then decided that I would spend my time with a women's group there who were HIV AIDS infected there. So as I sat there talking to them and listening to, what they had to say and what the current issues were and what barriers that they were facing, I posed them a question. I said, okay, this is a wild idea, but how would you like to have a volunteer? A volunteer from overseas, and just tell me exactly what you want to do. I'll help you with anything. If you want to build a house, I can do that with you. If you want training, I can do that there. I can teach you IT, whatever you like there. We can even make detergent together. They were thrilled. They laughed a lot there. But they were so happy. They're like, a volunteer from overseas? Really? You want to volunteer with us? And I was like, yeah, why not? I think you guys are fabulous. All that you do and so forth there, I'd love to be a part of it. So I guess that's really where my journey really began. And these women, I feel incredibly not just lucky, but I guess I don't want to say special, but the way that they treated me, the way that they just adopted me into the community, it was like nothing else. I would say that I learned so much from them, and that now 14 years later, where I've been going back pretty much nearly every year, is that now they've actually learned something from me as well, which is just, to see that change and to go back and to see how things are different and so forth there, and to see the way that people treat you after you've been there for a while. When I first initially went, everybody kept calling me a foreigner. They would call out to me. They'll be like, hey, foreigner, hey, foreigner, hey, foreigner. So this lasted for about 3-4 months and so forth there. But by the end of my time, I was no longer the foreigner. I was being greeted as sister, or pretty lady, how you doing and so forth there. To which the women were also quite thrilled there, because they said to me, we know foreigners, we've had experience sometimes there with some foreigners coming through there, but really we've never had someone like you, someone who has immersed themselves so much into our culture, who has, been dedicated enough to pick up some of our language, who has shared your own stories there, as well as listening to us there. And they said, this is what makes you different from others, and for me, that was such a moment that I will always cherish, and I think that not a lot of people realize that when you are of ethnic background, but you are the first generation to be born here in Australia, it's quite hard, because you feel as though, well, where do I exactly fit in there? I'm a foreigner here, and I'm a foreigner when I travel. Yet when I've been there, when I have constantly gone and spoken to these women there, whilst of course physically I do look like a foreigner, of course that's not going to change, but that concept of cultural safety, where these women became my cultural safety, my home, my everything, that the way they cared for me just selflessly, that was simply amazing there. And I'd say that really that has influenced the way that I practice my work in community development here and the way that I would lead my programs. They always say, be the change that you want to see in the world. And that's something that I really, truly live by in all the work that I do, to ensure that it's not just me talking, it's me listening and saying, well, what about you? What is your story? Why don't you tell me what you would like? And let's walk together side by side. There is no kind of power dynamics in which, I'm better than you. We are equal, because if we need to change the world to make sure that it's a better place, we need to stand together. And pretty much I would say that that really was the culmination of where my story began.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Sarah. It's just incredible how the spin of a globe can teleport somebody into a magical career, adventurous life. My curiosity to see the world actually came the same way. When I was 6 years old, my dad went to an auction and he bought a box of encyclopedias. And for me to read the encyclopedias, I had to close my eyes and spin this globe and touch a country. And I had to go read up on that country and come and present to him. So my curiosity to see the world came at a very early age. So it's really fascinating to hear you speak. Absolutely incredible. Now, you have said something that a lot of people will probably never quite comprehend or understand. When you are a transplant in another country, you are always a foreigner. I remember living in New Zealand for 25 years, and there wasn't one day where somebody didn't ask me where I was from. I consider myself a Black Kiwi. New Zealand is the longest country I've ever lived in, even outside of Africa. So how do you navigate that space and space that makes you feel that this is where I belong?
I think it's such a great question, especially for us that are sort of that transplant, as you said, and I do like that word quite a fair bit there. And I think it's really about what you feel inside, like what is your gut feeling? So for me, like when I do work in the community, I think people always assume that because I'm of Chinese background, that, oh yes, you'd be doing work with your community. Yet yes. I feel that it's such a struggle. I don't have that connection, and that connection is something that I can't really describe, but it's a feeling that you have, that feeling of feeling warmth. It's like somebody coming up and giving you a hug. And that's how I feel when I'm with other communities. It's that there is no judgment. I am just me. I'm just Sarah, or I'm just a person that they've met and they're like, oh, okay. Yes, you look different there, but still we are kindred spirits because we share the same values. We share the same ideas. And that is how, I feel like I navigate this space there, to really focus on do these people share the same values as me there? Is that connection, that warmth that you feel? It's an incredible feeling to be of one particular ethnic background there, but to be so close to, another ethnic background that, people who are like you would not normally be so close to. So you're really fitting outside the box there, but actually when you don't fit outside that box there and you find this, you feel like that is your comfort, and that helps you navigate these systems.
It's just crazy. What does it mean to you to be an unapologetic feminist? How does this perspective influence your work with diverse communities?
I guess, really, it's we have a problem, actually just being women ourselves there, where we're so apologetic for everything. It's like, I'm sorry for this, I'm sorry for that. And a lot of the times, I find in communities there, a lot of time women will just say, oh, I'm sorry for burdening you with this there. And so as an unapologetic feminist there, I'm very much like, no, why should you be sorry for? This is your right, and that this is what we need to take for ourselves there. So we need to train ourselves to stop saying sorry,
Yes.
because why should we say sorry just for existing? And for me, like, this is such a strong point there for me, like, especially when I come across, like, women in diverse communities, because already it's not just the whole concept of society saying that, oh, well, you basically need to be sorry for your existence, but our communities and our culture, which I would say, like, has a profound impact on how that is played out as well there. We have, like, society telling us what we need to be. We also have our communities and our culture and some of our peers telling us what we be there. So I think as an unapologetic feminist there, really my mission is that we need to not be sorry for existing there. We actually need to stand up and be counted and be heard, and to say, look, we are here, we're not going anywhere.
Yes.
And
Yes.
like, we deserve to be here just like anybody else there. So, like, we are unapologetic feminists, that's it there. Like, we need to take over the world.
Now, as a leader in primary prevention and early intervention programs, what challenges have you faced and how have you overcome them in working with communities affected by family violence?
I think the biggest challenge is getting people to understand that violence is not part of culture per se. It's what people think it is like, and that because of history, because of colonization, because of discrimination, because of racism there, they feel as though, well, actually, no, that is part of my culture, so it's justified. And I think that
Yes.
is the greatest challenge that I face there, is explaining to people that there are harmful cultural values which limit, and purposefully limit women's participation there.
Mhm.
So I think that's been one of my greatest challenges, and also the challenge of getting mainstream organizations to understand the mindsets of, like, diverse communities. It's, I think, completely inappropriate to come to a community and say, okay, you have rigid gender roles because, like, from the outside it looks like your system is very patriarchal, without actually having that conversation and saying, okay, tell me about, like, the roles of, like, men and women in your community there and how they feel about it there. And I think what some organizations get wrong is that sometimes these gendered roles, actually have existed there, not because of the patriarchal nature of society there, but actually because of what was actually going on and during that period of time.
Yes.
I think that's the biggest thing. And, that trickles down into so many different things, like, the way that women are here, like, the way that they embrace their independence, and understanding how the men might start feeling, in
Yes.
which I think you probably heard many times there that a lot of men, from refugee and migrant backgrounds, when they come to Australia, they're like, everything is all about women there. It's like women this, women that, blah, blah, blah. They get all the rights there. We are no better than the family dog. Even the family dog has more rights than us there. So it's like a big challenge to, sort of navigate that mindset and say, okay, well, I'm listening. Tell me why you feel like that there. And I think there's not enough focus on, like, looking at, okay, well, if men are feeling like this there because of what is happening there, how can we draw them into the conversation there and make them feel like, well, actually, you are part of this as well? Because, like, to solve the issues of, like, gender-based violence, it is both the
Yes.
responsibility of men and women.
Yeah, we can't actually do it alone, unfortunately. We need to bring our men folk into the room, onto the table. A lot of times women are advocating and we're doing it without including the men, and that's a very big mistake.
It's a very big mistake there, and I think they feel isolated, initially, and then, like,
Yeah.
when we start doing that there, then they feel even more isolated, and then that can have a trickle-on effect into, well, then the cycle of
Yes.
violence continues because they feel as though, well, I'm just exercising my rights. And it's like, actually, no, this is not the way to go about it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's pretty scary. Now, in your experience, what are some of the most effective ways to engage immigrant and refugee communities in conversations around violent prevention and gender equity?
I always think that the best way is to really approach people with humbleness. I think that is the key to success there in engaging these communities in conversation. So not coming in and saying, oh, okay, this is family violence. This is what's wrong with your community. Look at all these people who are dying and so forth there. If you come in with that approach, you're going to get nowhere. So when I talk about being humble, it's about approaching the community with humility and saying, okay, well, what do you think about this there? And to open that conversation with, well, what is happening in your community? Do you think this is an issue? And if yes, why? If no, why? And having those curious discussions to really understand, okay, what are they actually thinking when it comes to gender equity and family violence? And then when you start having those conversations there, then really it's when you start understanding the nuances of the community, the way they think, the dynamics, and how you can actually immerse yourself into that culture of the community there, so that later on you can have those really direct conversations that will have a profound impact. I think that is definitely the way to go.
That is awesome. Now, you speak about dismantling patriarchal structures. What specific action do you think are needed within society to create lasting change?
I would say that, to create lasting change there, I think we need to start looking at the concepts of feminism and masculinity there. I think right now, people really do understand the concept of what it means to be a feminist. But I think what is lacking and what we are now just picking up on is the concept of masculinity. Again, pointing to that patriarchal structure of society where if you're a man, you're expected to behave in a certain way. If you're a man from an ethnic background, then there's that added, I'd say, drama, from your culture, from your peers, from your family. It's like, oh, okay, when they say boys don't cry, especially for men from ethnic backgrounds, that is something that is held steadfast and say, okay, well, you hear it from your peers. Oh, if you do shed a tear, then okay, you're not man enough there. So they'll continuously hear that, and hear it from society, see it on TV and so forth there. And that really reinforces that idea of okay, to be a man is like this there, when actually it's not there. So I think that, this is the biggest issue that we need to dismantle there if we are going to dismantle patriarchal structures. Because if we continue to let this go on there, and again, if we continue just to focus on the easy part, so men who are, working in white collar jobs there, who can go, I can do shared equal care there because I work, I have a job that lets me take parental leave there. But what they're missing, okay, well, that's great. But what about men who speak English as an additional language, who are working in gig economy jobs there? So what about the Uber drivers? What about the migrant refugee men there who work in the abattoir? What about the men who drive taxis and so forth there? How are we supposed to engage with them there? How do we even begin? So I think there is a definite lack and a space to really go, okay, we need to sit back. We need to, again, humble ourselves there and think of how do we come to them there? Why should we be expecting them to come to us there? We need to come to them, if we're able to do some change.
Oh, man. So much work that needs to be done. Now, what role does intersectionality play in your approach to advocacy and leadership, especially when working with multicultural communities?
It's probably, I'd say, my favorite thing to talk about. A lot of times there, it's I feel like I question so many networks and organizations about where's your intersectionality there. I think people will just be like, yep, it's some buzzword and so forth there. Yeah, there was some black lawyer who coined the term and blah, blah, blah. But I think people don't really understand what the quintessential definition of it is there. Yes, it has to do with race there, but actually it's looking at the systemic issues that we face there because of our race, because of all the other issues that we're facing there. And I think people just don't get that concept there. And I think you probably heard, it's people say, oh, but I'm not racist because I have an Asian friend, or I'm not like, an ableist there because my friend is disabled. I care for them and so forth there. It's not about that there. It's about understanding the structures that bind us, that will limit us there. As a woman that is of an ethnic background and being Asian, really, if we look on that power wheel, and we look at the dynamics, it's like, okay, I'm ethnic. That's already a strike against me there because I live like, in a predominantly white person country, but then at the same time there, I'm still quite powerful because I speak English very, very well, like a local,
Yeah.
because I am, I'm highly educated. I have a somewhat well-paid job. Not rich, but I can live myself like, a comfortable life there. But traditionally, you find that like, if I didn't have all these things there, then I'd be living below that line, and I'd be struggling, but people don't understand that. And I think it's like the word itself, intersectionality, is like, okay, we'll look at the intersecting factors of that individual. What else is going on, that makes life difficult, or like gives them that power and balance there. So, for me in the work that I do there, I'm always like going, okay, where's your intersectionality? Where's this, and this, and this? Okay, you've got this network there. Okay, yes, you've got some brown person here, some Asian person there, but really, there's more to it than that there. It's like we need to look at all other factors like mental health, AOD, disability, and so forth. They're young people, old people, because this is what makes up intersectionality.
It sure is. It's just amazing. Now, can you share an example of a project or a program that you co-designed that had a significant impact on a community? What was the process and what were the results?
So, it's been a while now, but like a few years back there, I ran a women's leadership program there. And till this day, like every time I think about it, like it makes me smile. So basically, like, what we had done was obviously, yes, a true co-design there. And it wasn't just within one community, it was multiple communities that we managed to engage. We had women from Afghanistan, we had women from Pakistan, Somalia, South Sudan, Ethiopia, Congo, Burundi. So a real big mix there. What we did was there, we had asked them, okay, everybody knows like leadership programs and so forth there, but we want to make this different and unique to you. So why don't you tell us there what you feel are the key skills that you need, to become a leader? And then when we say leader, we actually broke down the idea of what it means to be a leader.
Right.
And I think like, what was really profound about this program is that the women had said, I don't want to have that title of a leader. And so we were like, okay, why? And they said, because of the burden that we hold, and then we were just a bit like, okay, but we want you to be leaders. And they said, okay, well, we want to be leaders, but not with that term leader. So they said that we just want to be known as individuals in the community, that are knowledgeable. So like wise women. So we said, okay, like, then let's cut out the word leadership and let's refer from now on to like, wise women or women who hold wisdom. And I think that was something very profound, and that changed the whole program there, where the women felt, okay, yes, this is specifically crafted for me. I feel included. I feel seen. And then, we developed an 8-week program in which, okay, of course, like, there was commonalities. We did advocacy there, but we did it like, with a focus on what these women would be doing, like, in their community there. So at each session there, we said, okay, like, what about this? What about that there? And then we actually sat down with them then and said, okay, we've been graciously given some like, funding by the council. There's enough for like, a community to do a project there. So then they actually got to practically deliver a project to like, community. And that was something that was remarkable for them there. Now, like, 1 to 2 years on there, a lot of them have gone on to start their own community groups there. A lot of them are now working, where they haven't been able to work before, and to see that change and to see them rise. And I think like, the greatest gift for me there is like, when I'm on a panel or when I'm an MC or I'm at an event there and I see them, as panel speakers, or that they're MCing, or that they're being called like subject matter experts. I'm like, well done. Absolutely fabulous. And that for me the quintessential point of like, yeah, this is what success looks like.
I love it. Now I'm going to end with the last two questions. And these questions are designed to teleport you into the past and then into the future.
Mm-hmm.
So if time was an illusion and I could teleport you to go and meet the young woman who set out on this crazy adventure, going off to Africa on her own, if you could go back and give her 3 nuggets of wisdom, based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those 3 nuggets of wisdom be?
I think definitely the first nugget of wisdom that I would tell myself in my younger version when I was about to go off to Africa is hold fast to your values. Don't let anybody question you. If you want to do something, then go ahead and do it. So I think that'll be my first nugget. The second nugget of wisdom that I would give myself there is you are your own expert. You know yourself better than anybody else there. Yes, you can listen, but don't take it on if you feel that that is not who you are there. So I think that would be the second nugget of wisdom that I'll give myself. The third nugget of wisdom would be like, you've always been different, and definitely the difference is nothing bad. It is actually something good there, and I think, looking back on myself and seeing myself now, I think that that is something that holds steadfast and true, because the difference is what makes me unique and makes me myself. And, that ability to be able to do the work that I do, and also to be a very confident woman and to sort of say, you know what, screw your tick box. I don't care if I don't fit in there, because you know what, I don't need it. I don't need to conform to your standards. So I think those are the 3 nuggets of wisdom that I would tell myself there when I was about to go off to Africa.
Last question. I'm going to teleport you into the future this time. We are going to go and meet the 100-year-old you. And you're sitting in your rocking chair, surrounded by your children, your grandchildren, your dogs, your cats, whoever's with you at the end. If I could teleport you into the future to go and meet this wise woman, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
Good question there. I think I'd probably be like, wow, we made it, against all the odds there, against all the sort of barriers that we face there, we made it. Look how far we have come, and all because we held fast to the nuggets of wisdom that we gave ourselves there. To feel that we have accomplished something there. We may not be Dr. So-and-so, we might not have 3 letters behind our names and so forth there, but you know what, we made it, because at the end of the day, your own self-happiness is what will always keep you going there. And I think if I met my 100-year-old self there, I'd be so pleased, to say that, hey, we did this, we got this, we lived through it there, and look at us there, we came out shining, against all the odds there. I think that's what I would be saying.
I love it. I love to ask that last question, because a lot of women don't realize that the wise woman is already in them. We look outside of ourselves for answers, for solutions all the time, instead of going within and trusting us, trusting your intuition, that crazy little voice that said, just spin the globe and go to Africa,
Exactly.
You were trusting that inner voice, and you've lived a magical life because of it. So thank you for being a real example of what's possible.
Absolutely.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We are a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, inspire you, energize you, but most importantly, to take you from where you are now to where you want to go. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview yet another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thanks again, Sarah.
No worries. Thanks, Gertrude.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep